Today, we got a story time of a kid who genuinely gets $10,000 a month from his parents in allowance to spend on video games. I don't know if you guys have ever been playing a video game and you see that one account or that one character, that one guy that you encounter that just has all like the premium add-ons, like he has the most expensive skins or whatever. And this kid is basically that guy, but on mega rhinoceros-sized steroids. With that being said, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's just jump right into it, guys. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Charlie. So anyways, there was a new kid in Charlie's class, and we're going to call this kid Ben, because that's what we tend to do on the channel when there's a second character that we introduce. Anyways, Charlie, knowing how hard it is to start at a new school, as Charlie 3 years prior to this was a new student at this school, it was difficult. It's always difficult to start, at a new school. You have to put yourself out there. You need to break into friend groups that have already been developed. It's a genuinely difficult thing to do. So Charlie decided that he was going to put himself out there. On the very, very first day, when Ben came in and Ben was sitting alone at lunch, Charlie decides that instead of sitting with his friends, which he could have very easily done and had a really good lunch and had a good time, that he instead was going to go over and sit with Charlie. So sit with Ben. So Charlie walks over, puts his food down, sits down, looks up, and Ben is kind of like sitting there eating his food, and Ben looks up, and Charlie, right off the bat, can kind of tell that, Ben, there's something different about him. He couldn't exactly put his finger on it then, but there's a little something different about him. Anyways, he's like, hey man, my name's Charlie, nice to meet you. And Ben's like, hey, my name's Ben, I'm new here. And Charlie's like, yeah, I thought I'd come over and introduce myself. So over the next 2 weeks from this point, Charlie kind of integrates Ben into his friend group. And in the very beginning, Ben is a little bit more reserved. Ben is, he's not flashing anything crazy at first. You wouldn't actually really notice that, Ben's parents were quadrillionaires, probably owned all of Saudi Arabia for all we know. However, there were a few tells, I don't know if you guys know, but, there was a few tells, one, the parents come and pick them up in a pretty nice car, probably means that unless the car is financed or something, they are doing pretty well. You can also notice that they might make a transaction without even looking at the price. It's like, oh, what if that was $50? What if that was $100? If that's not a question that they ask, well, then they'll probably have some access to some pretty solid funds. Anyways, though, so after about 3 to 4 weeks, Ben is pretty comfortable in the new friend group. It's Charlie and Charlie's friends. And so Ben decides to invite everyone over to his house for Friday night, for a sleepover. It's going to be a lot of fun. All the guys are pretty excited. They're happy about that. They like Ben, right? There's no reason for them not to. I will say, though, Charlie will say that over time, as Ben got more and more comfortable in the group, he started to show a little bit more of his dark side. And here's the thing. Dark side is a super dramatic way to say that. If I'm being honest, dark side's a very dramatic way to say that. But as you get more comfortable with a friend group, maybe you're not going to be as careful with what you say. Maybe you're not going to be as courteous, because in the very beginning, you're really playing to, if you're trying to enter a new friend group, not that you have to do anything that they say and everything that they say. However, you're trying to enter what they have, so you're going to be a little bit nicer. You're going to be a little bit more flexible. But as you get more comfortable, you don't really do that as much, as you don't feel the necessity to do so. And so Charlie was starting to pick up on a few ways where Ben might actually be a spoiled rich kid. So there was a few tells, such as one time there was a phone call. They were sitting, so this was before the sleepover, which is a very interesting and is the pinnacle of the story. But right before that, on that Thursday, they were all sitting there at lunch, and they're sitting there, and Ben gets a call from one of his parents, maybe his dad, his mom, I'm not sure. And he picks it up, and you can just kind of tell that there's this kind of air of entitlement when he's speaking to his parents, because the kind of facade that he put on, or which was starting to slip, it was starting to fade a little bit. He had none of that with his parents, because, you've lived with your parents for as long as you were alive, for most of us. So, but the thing was, Ben really didn't think that, or he didn't really consciously comprehend the fact that when he was speaking to his parents, he was doing so in front of all the guys. It's not as if they could not hear exactly what he was saying to his parents, which is pretty funny. So anyways, at that point, like while Ben is on this phone call, and I don't have anything specific, but I'm sure you guys can think of like, okay, oh, that's something entitled. He'd say, oh, he said this. He basically let 10 things slip that were red flags. And during this phone call, Charlie was giving like a side eye to the other guys, and they were all looking back as well. They're all kind of, non-verbally communicating with each other with their eyes of, oh, I didn't know this guy was like this. Like, he doesn't act like this around us. And you might be thinking, well, Connor, it's the parents, right? He's going to be a jerk to his parents, which, by the way, I do not condone being a jerk to your parents. In a lot of cases, they're the only ones there for you that will ever be there for you. Not in all cases, but be respectful of them either way. It's a bad look. Also, it's a bad look in public if you're disrespecting your parents, in my opinion. But not just to the level of being disrespectful, but he was clearly being entitled in a way that only a spoiled rich kid would have that air of entitlement around him. So he gets off the phone call, and Ben acts as if there was no phone call. I mean, he doesn't deny it. It's not like Charlie was like, oh, who you're calling? Like, who did you just call? And Ben was like, oh, I wasn't calling anyone. Like, what do you mean by that? No, but he just kind of, Ben proceeded on with the conversation as if this crazy phone call wasn't crazy at all, that it was nonchalant, regular, every single day. It was at the point where Ben didn't see anything wrong with anything he said and or the tone in which he said it. So Charlie and his friends, they just keep on the conversation. They're just thinking, okay, that was kind of weird, but they don't really harp on it. So let's flash forward to a day later. Charlie is, with his mom. He got back from school, and they're having a little conversation. And Charlie's mom's like, oh, yeah, like Ben, the new kid. Like, yeah, like I've heard a thing or two about his parents. And Charlie looks up kind of confused, like, you heard a thing or two about his parents? Like, in like a good way, in a bad way? Like, what does that mean? It's kind of ambiguous. So anyways, right, the mom goes on to explain that Ben's parents are actually, the last name was recognizable. So I'm not going to tell you the last name, obviously, because whenever a story is submitted to me, I always mix up a few of the details, always give them new names. But what you need to know is that the name was recognizable enough that it was like a long family dynasty type thing. And it wasn't probably like one of the most famous ones, but it was apparently one of the moms in their friend group must have recognized the name from maybe some documentary she watched or saw something in a finance article, looked up the name, saw the family. It was like a very, very super rich and wealthy family, whatever. And sure enough, right, all the moms kind of did a little bit of sleuthing, and, they looked at, Ben's parents on Facebook and did a little bit of Google searching and put two and two together that, yes, there was a very high likelihood that Ben was from the so-and-so family, which implied that he had access to a little bit of money, one might say. So anyways, right, Charlie's mom goes on to explain that to him, and he's kind of just like, oh, okay. And Charlie kind of had a sense a little bit that, Ben was a little bit spoiled by, the things that happened more recently. But he would have never guessed that, Ben was a part of like some $100 million dynasty type family. He might have expected that maybe Ben's dad was perhaps a high-end lawyer, or perhaps, I don't know, an investment banker, not, part of some massive family. But it did end up making sense. The thing is, though, Charlie doesn't really care. He's like, okay, that's cool. Maybe if I'm invited to this kid's birthday party, it'll be a nice birthday party. But honestly, beyond that, I really don't care. So sure enough, right, Ben's like, oh, or sorry, not Ben. Charlie's like, all right. And they get in the car and they drive over. And so Charlie knew the address of Ben's house just because he was given that to come to his sleepover party, right? But he didn't really look at the address in Google Maps or know where it was. He had the address. But as they were pulling in, they were driving towards a part of town that Charlie had only been to once. And he'd only been there because they had to drop something off, like they were doing some kind of campaigning or something, so they were going around. And this was the nice part of town. So anyways, they enter into the nice part of town that Charlie has not been to for a second. And as they're entering into the nice part of town, they enter into a gated community. So it was the nice part of the nice part of town. So anyways, Charlie calls up Ben. He's like, yo, like, we're at the gate. Like, can you give me the passcode or whatever? And Ben's like, oh yeah, my fault, my fault. So he gives him like the 6-digit like combination or whatever. And so Charlie tells that to the guy at the gate. He opens up the gate and they go in. And Charlie and his mom are seeing the most expensive houses he's ever seen. So sure enough, they're driving down and they're just seeing these amazing houses. And they eventually pull up to the house at the very end of the street. And the house at the very end of the street is the nicest of the houses. So they're in the nice neighborhood, and they're in the nice part of the nice neighborhood, and they're in the nicest house in the nicest part of the nice neighborhood. And this is probably, by the way, Ben's like 15th house, right? Families that have crazy money, they usually have like 3 to 4 houses. So this is probably just one example. So anyways, Charlie's dropped off. He goes up to the door, rings the doorbell, and some maid opens up the door. And she's like, oh, like you must be Ben's friend. They're all upstairs. And upstairs, by the way, doesn't mean go to the second floor. Because no, this house does not have 2 floors. It has 4. So anyways, Charlie's going up the stairs and he's kind of looking around and he hears the noise of like kids talking, probably his friends and Ben, and the sound of video games or whatever. So he's trying to figure out exactly, okay, it's not on the second floor because it's a little faint. So he goes up to the 3rd floor. He kind of hears them down the hallway. So he goes down the hallway and he opens up. By the way, I'm leaving out a ton of details of just how spectacular this house is and how just lavish the whole inside is. And you can fill that in with your own imagination. But anyways, Charlie gets to the door. He opens it up and imagine the size of your room or your friend's room and multiply it by 5 at a minimum. And that's assuming you have a fairly big room. This is like a massive hotel guest suite. That's the most expensive hotel room. This is like an entire floor. It's ridiculous. And it is the craziest room you've ever seen. And if there's anything you've ever wanted, it is probably in this room. Any gadget, any contraption, anything like that, it is probably in this room. So anyways, Charlie walks in and Ben is at like this computer monitor. And by the way, there's multiple computer monitors. So the rest of Charlie's friends are at different computer monitors and they're all playing. They're all playing right now. And so Charlie walks in and Ben turns around. He's like, yo, what's up, dude? Like, go to that far corner, whatever. And there's a computer waiting for him. By the way, there's like 6 other computers and stuff in the back of the room that they're not out. Because I guess Ben set up all these computers for when his friends were to come over. But he had more computers just in case he invited more people. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, I can't even imagine this. I can't even imagine having more than one computer, let alone like 15 and as many as I wanted if I wanted more computers. Oh, Mom, I'm having another friend over. Can you buy me another $3,000 intensive gaming laptop? Sure, son. Like that conversation just doesn't make any sense to me, but I go with it because in the world of spoiled kids, you gotta have a little bit of imagination. You gotta have a little bit of imagination. Anyways, we're about to get to one of the best parts. So sure enough, they're sitting there, they're playing around. They're actually, Charlie's having a really good time. And, Ben, the thing is, Ben isn't blatantly spoiled in the sense that he's a massive jerk the whole time. And he's kind of pushing them around. And he's just being really not fun to hang out with. Ben is spoiled in the sense that most of the time he's good. And most of the time, he has good intentions. And most of the time, he's a fairly good guy. But he just has those moments where he doesn't even realize that he's being super spoiled. He doesn't even really comprehend that his actions are not something that 99.9% of kids would do. Or if they did, they would at least know that what they're doing is kind of messed up. So sure enough, right, they're sitting there and they're having a pretty good time. Like Charlie's having a pretty good time and everything. And that's when Ben is just like, I've already used up my budget this month for I don't know what game they're playing, but in most games, there's some way to spend your money on either cosmetic items. So in Fortnite, you got skins, and in CSGO, you got skins, and I don't know. Or maybe actual items that help you in the game. But a lot of time, it's just cosmetic, so it doesn't actually affect you that much. But he's like, oh man, I already ran out my budget, like my allowance this month, and it's only been a week. Like, this is so crazy. So when he said allowance, right, they knew that he was, a pretty, a rich kid, right? But then he goes on to be like, I can't believe my mom only gives me $10,000 a month to spend on like video game items. Like, bro, I could go through that in a day. And at this point, like, Charlie is just, and all of his friends, they're just like, huh? Like, none of them verbally react, right? They're not like, oh my God, like, that's insane. But they're all kind of like, they all kind of stop and they all kind of like look at each other like, did this kid just complain about receiving $10,000 a month? That's 6 figures a year to spend solely on cosmetic items in video games. And he's complaining because he wants more. Bro wants a top 1% salary of a fully grown adult in the United States to spend on video game skins. And he's mad that he only has a top 5% salary of a fully grown adult in the United States to spend on video game skins. Well, this is a whole new level of spoiled kid that I've ever told on this channel before. And Ben kind of says that so casually and then goes back to gaming. And these words are really sticking with everyone else because, believe it or not, this is not a relatable statement. So I know you guys might be thinking, okay, well, this is like the most spoiled thing he can do. Well, just wait 1 second because he's about to double down. It's like, that TikTok challenge where it's like take this or like double it and give it to the next person. Well, he's about to double it and give it back to himself. Real quick, though, if I could have your attention for less than 30 seconds, which I think is fair. If you made it this far into the video, I'd love for you to go ahead and comment spoiled in the comment section down below. It gives me the names and faces of people who made it this far, and I just want to say thank you, and I'll try and heart a bunch of those comments or do whatever I can do. And also, if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, if you go into the description of this video, there's a little thing that says join my mailing list with like a down arrow. It's going to bring you to a link to a Google form. And all I'm asking is fill in your name, give me your email address, because the thing is, social media algorithms are really hard to control. And if I need to reach you guys, or I want to reach you guys, really the best way to do it is through a mailing list. The majority of stuff I send to you guys on there is actually totally free YouTube advice. So if you have any interest in starting a YouTube channel, or you have a YouTube channel, or you maybe don't want to start one now, but you find it interesting, well, that mailing list is going to be a ton of free value for you. And also, it allows me to stay in touch with you if there's major life events, and you can learn a little bit more about me too. So go down in the description and click the link for the Google form if you haven't done so already. If you've done so already, you're good. You're in the list. And make sure to add your name and an email address that's best to reach you at. And with that being said, let's see how this spoiled kid is about to double down and be even twice as spoiled as before. So sure enough, right, they're all kind of sitting there, and it's whatever, right? It's as time is going on, they kind of get over the fact, and definitely Charlie, when he gets back home on Saturday the next day, he's most definitely going to be calling up his friends, and they're going to be talking about how insane of a statement that was. Not that they necessarily dislike Ben, but just Ben's a cool kid, but is somehow super disconnected from the reality of basically every other human being on Earth. But Ben is about to do something insane. So they're having a match. I don't know the video game. Could have been Fortnite, could have been CSGO, could have been anything, could have been Valorant. I don't know. Insert your game. And it's a ranked match, meaning that your score or your result of the game matters towards your ranking. So you can't casually lose and be like, okay, whatever, it has no effect. This time, it does have an effect. So they're playing like a team ranked or whatever. I don't know. What matters is that Ben loses. Or he does poorly, or for some reason, Ben is super upset about what happens. And what do you think Ben does? Well, I'm not even going to let you guys guess. I'm not going to let you guess. I'll just tell you. He takes his fist and just throws it into his computer screen, smashes the computer, it flies off of his desk, hits the wall, shatters, done. That computer, which is probably multiple thousands of dollars, is over. It's over. And everyone's just like, stop what they're doing. They all just kind of freeze. And Ben's like, God damn it, like, I should have done blah, blah, blah. It's just basically like having a gamer freak out. He's like, all right, guys, one second. He walks back to his closet, and he pulls out a brand new computer. And he starts setting it up. He's like, yo, boy, sorry, I'm going to be like 5 minutes. I have to set this up. I have to log back in. And everyone's just like, oh my God, this kid, he got mad at a video game and he decided that the best call would be to obliterate his gaming computer that costs thousands and thousands of dollars and just go in the back for a spare. And then they're thinking, I wonder how many times a month he just breaks a computer because he's mad. No. I wonder how many times a week. I wonder how many times a day he does this. So sure enough, they go on, and the thing is, Ben is moving like nothing happened. And the rest of the sleepover, it's pretty nonchalant, it's pretty casual. They have a pretty good time. But when Charlie gets back, when Charlie leaves the house and he's picked up by his mom, he hops in the car. Charlie's mom's like, so, how was it? How was Ben? Like, anything interesting happen? And he just looks at his mom and is like, oh, do I have a story for you?